Michelle, Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live here in the International Public Radio, right on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. The Outer Realm is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee and, of course, Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, a.k.a. Justin Snicker, who is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and darkware electronic music. And it can be found on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, and most streaming platforms. So tonight, we welcome, for the very first time here in the Outer Realm, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and she will be discussing past life regressions and dealing with people who've had extraterrestrial experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in order to participate in tonight's show, you can find us on the various platforms being, let me read them off, make sure we get it right, UFO Paranormal Radio, Paranormal Radio says that twice. News on the Flip Side, which is on Facebook, Canada's Most Haunted, Michelle Desrochers on Facebook, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, also on Facebook, International Public Radio on YouTube, and we're on Twitch, and we're on the Outer Realm, of course, on Facebook, and Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover. We can see you in all streams, but if you're looking for an immediate response, you do have to be on UFO Paranormal YouTube, tag Amelia, and we can get the show on the road. So, I think I did it. Yeah, you betcha. Oh my gosh, what a day! I swear, what a day! It was supposed to be a quiet day, and it ended up being the complete opposite.
Oh no, that's why I haven't heard from you all day. I go, wow, she must be really
entire
busy.
day. It was run. I was just like,
yeah,
this was supposed to be a day at home, and it was not a day at home, and it was just like all over the place.
It was a very cold. Hi, Dolly. It was a very
Dolly.
day, and yes, I'm freezing again today. But it was a very cold day. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Not such impressed with it. I mean, none of it was a bad day. It was just, a busy day. Oh, hello, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy.
So, so that was just sort of that. And I really didn't get, anything done that I wanted to do, because usually I start with my research for, the Gray Zone, which is on Saturdays. And,
Hi, Corinne.
Yeah. And, definitely was not a thing.
I was out today and only accomplished one of 4 things I was supposed to do because it took longer than I expected. But and then on my way home, I was supposed to hit 3 places on my way home.
Uh-oh.
And I just, when you have those, I'm going to say that moment, since Corinne's the author of that moment, when you're on your way home and you're just like, I am just too old for this crap to be running around.
No,
I'm just too old to be doing this constant running. Stop, go with the truck drives me crazy.
I know.
If I had the car today, it would have been a different story. But the truck is like trying to park. I drive a Hummer. Trying to park it is not easy. I love taking my daughter's car, but she was off doing a photo shoot, so but anyways, just driving. I drove right past the places I was supposed to stop in and went,
that's no age.
It's like, no,
it's like,
no. Do I? Nope. Change lanes. Go the other way. Just go home. It was, but it was just
it's hard.
that kind of day. But
it is.
That's
it's
okay.
really
It'll
hard.
get better. It'll get better.
Yeah, spring will be here sometime. Actually, I think the clocks roll back. The clocks roll back, I think, this weekend, which means we gain an hour. I am so happy.
We should do a show on how stupid it is that we even have time change.
And
just
honestly, it's
leave
true,
it at this. extra
I'm
hour because people
I'm
are
just so grateful
happier.
for it because I gain an hour.
I know. And you know what's funny? It's like for the first, only in the winter do I actually wake up what I call early in the morning because I go to
No.
bed between like 3 and 5.
Oh yeah, I
So,
just
and I'm up usually a few hours later. But when
right,
that,
right,
when that time changes, I'm
right.
actually a lot more energetic. And they say that no, the reason why they spring forward is because we get that extra hour of daylight and it
Absolutely.
makes people happier. I'm like, no, it doesn't. You know what makes people happier? An extra hour of sleep.
That's what it is. I'm
It's
down
not
for the
the
extra
sun.
hour.
Have you seen?
Absolutely.
Do you see how
Yeah.
happy people are in Barbados? It's pitch black with the stars out at 6:30 at night in Barbados. Do you see a grumpy person in Barbados? No. Give me the hour, okay? They don't have time change. Just saying.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's my rant
Yes.
for the day. But I'm
All
going
right.
to give a
All
quick
right.
bio for our lovely guest tonight. I've been so looking forward to this. And Toronto based. Woohoo. But I just see a comment. Yep, November 7th.
That's it.
You'll need to. Thanks, Corinne. I just know I wake up on Sunday when I feel like it and I look and see what time it says on my iPhone. Okay. So let's just like settle down because I'm like all over the place right now. I feel like
Moment.
Joe just rubbed off on me
Are you hyper?
a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Okay. I just thought
Okay.
I'd check. All right. Go.
Leslie Mitchell Clark is a Toronto based certified clinical hypnotherapist who specializes in a number of modalities, including working with individuals who feel that they have had experiences with extraterrestrial beings. Most of this fascinating work, as well as the metaphysical therapies, which I think I need, gonna have to talk to her about that, such as past life and interlife regression, takes place at Leslie's Toronto Hypnosis Clinic. Lightwork Hypnosis. Please help us welcome the lovely Leslie Mitchell Clark to the show. Hello,
Hello.
I'm coming to see you.
Hello.
How
I'm
are
coming to
you?
see you. I think I need you. Is there something for
Oh,
supporting in the like dead set of a moment and you forget you're live on air?
yes, it can happen, but
Okay.
you guys, I'm so happy to see you, beautiful ladies,
Thank
Oh,
and
we're glad
you.
to see
thank
you.
you
You
so
look great.
much for having me on, and a slightly belated happy Samhain. That's our
Oh,
big
thank you.
Celtic
Thank you.
festival.
Same.
Happy New Year! It is actually for us. So,
Yes. Yes. That's right.
It really is. It really is. Maybe that's why it feels so good.
oh yeah,
It's not
the
just the
the
time
veil
change.
is the veil is thin right now. It's
Yeah.
very, and you're, I'm sure you're both such sensitive, amazing ladies. I'm sure you're feeling all kinds of energies. Now, are you, where are you located?
Well, we're pretty local for you. We stream out of New Orleans, but we're actually, yes, but
Ooh.
we're
I
live on New Orleans 105.3 FM, and we do stream the show from there. But we are in Canada, Southern Ontario.
yeah.
Oh,
I
you're
I grew up
kidding.
I
There we
was
go.
born and raised in Toronto. I was actually born at Humber Memorial Hospital,
Oh,
and
you're
I
kidding.
moved to Stony Creek Mountain after I got married years ago. But I do come back to Toronto all the time. That's why I said I'm coming to see you because you're less than an hour away
Yay.
from me. And
Yay.
I'm reading that and thinking I can actually do this in person because
You
everyone I know is
can.
overseas. So
You
yeah,
can. Boy, I don't know. We have, I don't know how we as a people have gotten through this past couple of years. I was just thinking about, the lack of travel and how we've been kind of
It's been
forced.
hard for me. I travel a lot.
Ooh, man, it's been hard, but have we not been sort of forced cosmically to reevaluate things? And people have also made amazing changes during this past couple of
Mhm.
years.
Hmm. Yeah,
Very
there's
much so.
definitely some changes, and yeah, I'd like to see more of a balance.
Oh, yeah,
There's a
no
bit of
kidding.
hostility out there too, you know. It's like,
Reason for living, right?
yeah,
Isn't that the reason for living? I mean, my daughter's a Libra, and I don't think she's she'd kill me, but isn't there the reason why we're live is to find balance, right? Well, one of the reasons
Yeah.
when people say, "What's the key to life?" I'm like, balance is the first thing that comes to me because none of us have it.
Well, I think it's a thing that has to come with also, certain genetic makeup and maybe the ability to sleep 8 hours a night.
Oh, that'd
I'm
be
not
great.
sure. I think it's complex, and
Yeah.
some people are living interdimensional lives, and it's a little
Mm.
more complex than
What does that
I
mean?
agree.
Living
Yes.
interdimensional lives. What exactly does that mean? Take this
Well,
off for a minute.
I think in the broad sense, what I kind of meant there was that I don't believe that time is actually linear in any kind of way. I think that it's a agreement that we have all made together to come into this third density and accomplish things and get to
Mm,
point A to point B. We have to have a linear point of reference, but I don't believe that space-time actually functions that way. And this is kind of from so many years of doing past life regressions and time tripping around, and I kind of have a feeling that it almost all occurs simultaneously.
hmm.
And it's like turning into different radio stations.
Yes, I
If
agree.
we can get into the frequency of that time and space, then we're there. I had a weird spontaneous kind of time travel thing happen in New York. I know this isn't on our real subject line,
No, no, no.
but
This is just kind of
Your
like
it's your
round table,
show.
whatever. Yeah.
It's
it
your
was
show. Yeah.
well, it was just such a strange thing, and I think, in places where there's a lot of history, maybe I was in a place where the veil was thin. Anyway, I was at Lower Manhattan. I was way down in Greenwich Village, probably the oldest part of New York City. And I was pregnant, not hugely pregnant, but pregnant. So I was completely, straight as an arrow. I hadn't even had a cocktail, nothing. And I had been to see some amazing music at the Village Vanguard. And I was in an altered state, to be sure, but a completely natural altered state. Just I definitely was about as high as you could get. It was amazing. Anyway, so I was walking down the old part of this street, and as I stepped off the curb onto the old cobblestones, I suddenly felt that I was smaller, that I was a much smaller person, and I could feel that I was wearing a corset. And then I heard horses, I smelled horses, and I looked across the street and I saw, what looked like a huge barn. And I thought, well, that's kind of funny. That's not where the police barn is. I can't remember. Anyway, so there was a gentleman unhooking his team of horses and putting them away. And I continued to cross the street, and it was silent, and I was small, and I could feel my outfit, and I could smell the smells. And by the time I got up to the other side of the curb, bang, I was back in what we call contemporary time.
Hmm.
So I think there are vortices. I
Yeah, it
think
sounds
that
like a
there
time
are,
slip.
yeah, I think that there are places on Earth, all over the Earth, where gravity, which we don't even totally understand, is
Mhm.
thinner. And so, if gravity is thinner or uneven, that's part of space time. Gravity is part of space time. So,
Mhm.
I think that vortices have been used by many different civilizations for many different reasons. I think they have been used for traveling throughout the galaxy. I think have been used as energy resources, and and I think even, our own government, I am an American, I think has been using this kind of technology for years and years, since the Montauk chair, since the Philadelphia
Absolutely.
experiment. I mean, they've been
Absolutely.
up to it into their steely eyebrows.
Oh, yeah, I believe
Mm.
that. 100%. Yes. Yes. Interdimensional travel is not really that hard technically, scientifically. So that's something they've got down like pat.
Oh, they do. They do.
Yeah.
And there are many, and we talk a little bit maybe about some of the experiences that the people that I have worked with have had. And
Yes.
it's not uncommon for them to talk about, various ETs having a kind of wand where they seem to be able to open up a
Mhm.
vortice at will. So
Mm.
this is all manageable. This is all, just, a few steps ahead of what most people can comprehend, but it's happening and it's been happening. And
Mm.
there you go.
So, what made you decide to? Because I mean, you've had a pretty colorful career existence, I guess. So,
I
what made you
have.
decide to get into this? It's just, I mean, especially, it's not like you're just hypnotizing somebody and saying, "Okay, we're going to teach you how to stop eating, stop spending money, and stop smoking." I mean, you're really
Well, I
like,
do a
"Woo,
lot of that
let's do
too.
this."
I
Right?
gotta tell you,
Yeah. Right.
I do an awful lot of what you would call
Right.
mainstream, hypno, where I take away people's fears of spiders or driving and,
Right.
thumb suckers, bed wetters, hair
Wow.
pullers, you
Oh
name it,
yeah,
man.
that well, hair
You name
pulling is
it.
serious. Hair
Oh, it
pulling
Yeah.
is.
is
Yeah,
serious. Yeah,
tetratrillomania is serious and it's really
it's
common. So
almost as bad as cutting. Yeah,
it
it's
is related
traumatic.
to that. It's and
Yeah.
it's a real OCD behavior, but I work in it and I get people to stop, and especially of concern, I'm also certified in pediatric hypnosis, so I work
Oh,
with a lot of kids and teenagers, and I really love that because they're
Right.
like
I
little
do too.
sponges and they
Yeah.
just they just
And you
suck up
always
those suggestions.
and you always get truth out of children. They just give you honesty. I
Oh
loved when I
yeah.
was mentoring children. That was my favorite.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
The only downside of working with kids is their parents. You
I'm
know
gonna
what I
key
mean?
I'm
Oh
gonna
my
lock and key
god.
that because I still have 2. So I'm
Oh
gonna
god.
lock and key that one. I
Okay.
don't
All
actually
right.
I'm really lucky because 'cause they're very supportive. They're actually king to me. So I'm lucky for that part. But yeah, what made you why did you move to Canada? I'd love to ask you that if that's
Oh,
okay.
well, that has a very easy answer. My husband is a very well-known jazz drummer named Terry Clark, and we met in New York City, my
Mhm.
hometown. And when our kids were little, we both and he's Canadian. So when our kids were little, we both had the feeling that like something really funky was going to happen. And I'm not a precognitive person. I would never claim to
Mhm.
be that, but we both had this feeling. So we moved, and we already owned a home in Toronto. So it was not a difficult move. And the kids were little enough so they didn't get all,
Yeah.
wigged
Mm.
out. So, but after we had been in Toronto for about a month, 9/11 happened.
Wow.
And if in the businesses that we were doing then, we would have been bankrupted completely because
Wow.
had we
Smart
not
move.
gone then, there's a lot of strange things about 9/11, like why all the cab drivers left before it happened. There's some very strange things that we
I
could talk
never
about
even thought of
on
that.
another show. Yeah, all the
I
cab
never
drivers
even thought
split.
of that
Hmm.
because everybody has, no matter whether you were there or not there, anyone you speak to has a connection and a story. It's,
Hmm.
and you often hear about people who didn't take that flight or didn't arrive to work that day or
Right.
my brother, for instance, was supposed to be in one of the towers for a meeting and rescheduled it the week before and
Oh
was there the
my.
week before. It's like, oh my gosh, my cousin worked the Pentagon. The plane actually went through his office. He went
Oh,
outside. He left his
oh
files and some
God.
files in his car and he went back to get them.
Maybe
And
Oh,
he
someone who
was in the,
actually died in one of the towers,
yeah,
yeah,
and they were able to
absolutely.
ID him from a tooth.
Oh,
yeah.
That's crazy.
unbelievable. But I guess to get back to your earlier question, now I have always been involved with mental health care. In
Right.
Mhm.
fact, the way that I put myself through university was I was first a psychiatric aide in a state mental hospital, and then I took further training. Eventually, I became a psychiatric technician, which is really like a psychiatric nurse, and I continued to do that kind of work intermittently in my, show business career. I continued to work an awful lot in Los Angeles. I did an awful lot of work in addiction rehab. I worked in
Mhm.
places like that. Now, about 15 years ago, actually, probably a little more, I guess you could say I was having a kind of a kind of a crisis. I felt that I wasn't doing anything that was valuable. I was looking for something that I wanted to do. I had invested, getting a nursing license here in Canada, and it was such a big McGilla that I was discouraged by that. And so my husband said, you know, I'm gonna buy you a past life regression. That's what he did. He bought me a past life regression with a very knowledgeable hypnotherapist who turned out to be a student from of my mentor as well. Anyway,
Oh,
so
nice.
it was more quantum entanglement going on. So I had the past life regression, and of course it was fascinating and informative. But the main thing that I took away is I knew that I could do that.
Mm,
I knew it.
Exciting.
Whether I think maybe I may have worked in these areas in past lives. I mean, hypnosis is over 6,000 years old.
yeah.
And if you accept the concept of antediluvian civilizations, pre-flood civilizations, it's probably even older than that.
Yeah,
But
I believe that.
every major culture has a version of it. So I just connected that this, and so very quickly after that, I took the necessary steps and I signed up, at the Ontario Hypnosis Center and got my basic training. And then I went down and I worked at a really funky, funky hypnosis clinic in a very unfashionable part of town. But
Oh boy, you
it was
rebel, you.
Oh yeah, I know, but it was kind of like, working at Bellevue, an internship, I think, because
Right.
everything that you can imagine
Wow.
uh, was thrown at me. So, and
Wow.
since that time, well, I should tell you what began to happen is once I worked at a very nice upscale clinic. Once about once a month, somebody would call in and say, I believe I've had these things. I need some regression, and nobody wanted to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And I said,
Wow.
give these people to me. And what eventually happened is I adapted past life regression techniques to use specifically with experiencers. Now, I didn't reinvent the wheel here or anything like that. I mean, this is pretty straightforward, but I took those kinds of regression techniques and I just simply reworked them to be able to help these individuals to recapture suppressed memories.
Wow.
And that's what I did. And, by the way, I don't believe that any memories are ever lost. I do not believe it.
Oh,
Everything that we have done, seen, smelled, tasted is in our subconscious mind. And my feeling is that any type of memory block cannot last forever. And
Mhm.
so usually
I'm
when
so
people,
happy to hear that.
oh, I believe that's true.
Yeah.
And usually when people come to see me with this issue of having partial memories or missing time, it's usually in midlife. And these memory blocks, whether they are synthetic or whether they're however
Extraterrestrial?
that, yeah, how exactly, however
Mhm.
they're formed, they cannot last. So people have bits of stuff floating up, and it makes them, there really is no traditional help for people going through this kind of phenomena. It's a little bit like it's a little bit like a post-traumatic stress disorder in the fact that they have flashes of things. So it does have similarities to that, but all too often, I'm like the last chance Texaco. These poor souls have been through God knows what with the psychiatric, I don't even know what to call it, behemoth. These poor people have been
Hmm.
through medications, they've been through this, only to be told there's nothing wrong with you. We can't figure this out.
That's pretty
So,
tough
yeah.
because, I think past lives, for example, even extraterrestrial experiences, I think slowly come through in dreams or
Hmm.
in your actions. Like I've always said, I've had memories and you just don't know where they come from. You feel a sense of loss of leaving someone behind, but you
Hmm.
just don't quite understand what the void is about. It's just,
Indeed.
yeah.
Indeed, it's and you know what? Unless someone, well, speaking of past life regressions, unless someone comes to me with a specific, I'm looking to see if I knew my partner in another lifetime. I want
Right.
to go to that. Unless they come in with some specific thing,
Mhm.
we always go to the lifetimes that seem to be applicable for that soul at that time.
Interesting.
They get what they need, even if it's not what they were expecting. And
Hmm.
oftentimes it's not. But
I
Hmm.
they hear something that resonates, and they come in with questions and problems and issues that they don't share with me, and they don't need to. But they
Hmm.
get what they need
Hmm.
um, from their own experiences of past lives.
But how do you differentiate from, let's say, like a lineage or DNA imprinting? You know?
Um, I think that there's both. I think that one
Yeah.
does not preclude the other.
Mm.
I believe that there is also genetic memory.
Right.
And that in time, I think we can learn to access that, like looking at a history book. There is some school of thought that says that that type of genetic memory is
Mm.
contained in the spine. So,
Mm.
and I know in some forms of meditation, it's actually you actually kind of fall down in your spine. So, I believe that there is
Mhm.
genetic memory,
Yeah.
and that certainly is a thing that people can also be very much in touch with.
Mhm.
hmm.
Yeah, I believe that also. It's just it can be very convoluted. Like I think the two often cross. And I think if you
Certainly, they
don't,
do.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you start to wonder what's yours. Were you there? Was this someone in your
And you're in the
lineage?
line. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's a
know.
tough one. But when
Well, and
even with flashes of memories as well, sometimes, I mean, I get a lot of them. I think anyone who works in this field gets a lot of
mhm,
them. And there's times where I even second guess what I'm seeing and think, "T-
mhm,
was that me? Or am I remembering something from someone else, it along my line, my lineage,
Mhm.
my ancestors,
mhm,
that is supposed to help me now." It's a tough
indeed.
one. That's why we need people like you.
Well, and don't forget that you're also tapping into the akasha.
That's right.
Yeah.
All the information is available to us.
Mhm.
We just have to put ourselves in that receptive place, and that's where everything comes from. It's all contained etherically. So,
Mhm.
and we as beings can tap into that and get information, and your subconscious can tap into it without you even really requesting it. So
Hmm.
all kinds of things can happen for sure. And don't forget also that we tend to incarnate in groups together, so
Hmm.
that you're yes, it would be possible to be even genetically related to maybe someone who came in as a sister or a brother. I mean, it can be very complex. But in family groups, people tend to change roles. This
Hmm.
time I'm your sister, this time you're my mother, that kind of thing. I don't know what I was thinking when I came in with my mother. Oh God. I guess I think I really wanted a challenge. That must have been it.
I think I'm
Woo.
sitting with you there, because it wasn't until the last 3 years of her life that I actually had a relationship with her. But yeah,
Golly.
sometimes I wonder if I was the one raising her before and it was payback,
It happens. That's the
It,
situation with my
you
daughter and I,
know?
apparently. And we
yeah.
are like
Yeah.
this every step of the way.
Hmm. It,
We weren't like that. Once I moved out, it was a whole
Mm.
other ball game. But living together was hell.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
uh, and I yeah. Sometimes it's just the
still,
way people affect you. Their energy
it is.
affects you.
I think when you do that whole role reversal thing, you do butt heads. My daughter moved to Australia, and that little freaking arm would find its way across the other side of the world through Skype and say, "I need this. You don't love me." I
Yeah,
was like,
right,
"What?" Because I don't
right.
want to do this right now with a
Yeah.
16-hour time difference.
The
Yeah, she still
manipulations
managed.
continue. The manipulations continue.
It
That's for
did. I was
sure.
just like, I thought,
They continue.
okay,
I
this
had
is
it the other way
wow.
around. I had it the other way around. My mother was manipulative with her.
Yeah.
Well, there
Okay.
you
Yeah,
go. And
yeah.
and
Guilt
in that
trips.
situation, perhaps, she was really the child and you were the mother and you were trying to even out that situation or heal it
I
some
I
way,
definitely
you
got my
know?
passive aggressiveness from her, and I'm very proud of it. I don't care. I'm
No,
kidding. I'm
it's a
kidding.
good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think you pick up all we retain all the good parts. I think the bad parts are probably what's more buried.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I had a friend who tried to get regressed just because she had such a bad childhood. She blocked so much out,
Oh.
and the therapist working with her could not break through
Oh,
at
yeah.
all.
That's one of
At
the
all.
hardest,
It is.
hardest, hardest things
Yeah,
to do is because those childhood memories of abuse are so deep and so
I can't
locked
imagine.
down.
Yeah,
I have actually, experienced that where someone wants to go on a metaphysical thing and they're they're hiding,
yeah,
they're protecting themselves. But
yeah.
hypnosis in general, and this is really true, it's about 30% of the population aren't really able to go into trance. And
Michelle.
yeah, no, but actually, Michelle, have you had trouble going into trance?
Oh yeah, I've had somebody try to hypnotize me as a
Okay.
psychologist and just just, oh, let's just try this. I went, all right. But I was completely aware of everything. My daughter's the same. Like
You're
we
you're still
just
Well,
aware under
we're
though.
aware
You're
of
still
you
everything.
aware.
Not
are
under,
you are
not under.
supposed to be you're not supposed to be unconscious.
Oh
You
no,
are
but
supposed to
I'm
be aware.
yeah,
And
oh
you weren't
no,
all you
I was still
altered it all.
listening, but I was
Mhm.
aware of everything that, was what he was saying, everything,
Mhm.
but my mind could still go, I have to do this today. I forgot.
That's that's perfectly normal, actually. We say
Yeah.
that, if thoughts fly through your head, the
Oh
grocery
yeah,
list,
but yeah.
whatever, you just
No, I
let
could
it
have got up
pass
at
on
any time
through.
and not even thought twice
It's like
about it. It was,
it's like meditating, that kind of
I
thing. And
guess
I'm the
maybe.
total
Well,
opposite, polar opposite of Michelle, where if you're hypnotizing her, I'll go under.
oh yeah.
Oh,
I
shut
I've
up,
had that
Joe.
happen. Sure.
Yeah,
I've had
I
that
can't even
happen.
watch television programs where, in the movie he's
Yeah.
waving that watch. I'm like
Hey,
this. I'm like, wow,
but I'm
we need
enthusiastic
to
and always
stop.
ready to try.
But
Well, Michelle, sometime, if we can get together, I'd like to give it a shot.
I would be open for that. I
I
think it'd
would.
be
They
interesting.
call me the Velvet Hammer because I can get
Oh,
anybody under.
I
So
challenge
want to see that.
accepted.
I consider that a little bit of a challenge, but
Challenge
I would like
accepted.
to give it a try anytime.
That's
We'll work
awesome.
it out.
My producer's in chat going, control freak. It is not that.
No,
Maybe. I
no.
don't know.
Well, it's some people have very active minds, and it's very difficult for them to relinquish control or even to
I
relax. It's hard.
believe
So
that. I went
it's
for a
true.
Reiki session once and she tried to
And
calm
she
down
went,
my energy.
"Whoa!"
No, it was bad. My whole body started vibrating and my mind, all I could hear was like a almost like a humming sound going through. And her hands came up and she goes, "I've never seen this, and I don't think I should continue. Let's
Wow.
try this again in 2 weeks." I'm like,
Wow. That's
okay,
something I've never done, but I've been
Okay.
hypnotized since I was really young, and I think
yeah,
that's why
Yeah.
it's so easy for me. Because when
Yeah.
you do it as a child, um, you don't think it through as a child. You just follow
no,
direction. I think when you're older, you start to, and as a child, honestly, you're not thinking, I got to do the groceries, I got to go to the bank. You're not thinking that. You're just you're focused on, because I was in therapy, and
Mhm.
you focus on that.
Mhm.
Right.
Mm,
You
Yeah.
have you're just less analytical. Now, I
mhm,
myself, I don't really believe in working on kids that are less than 8. And the reason for that is just that children have so suggestible, and they have such a fine line between fantasy and reality and their creative stuff. I just don't think it's a good idea. So, but after about 8, they're wonderful hypnotic subjects, generally speaking.
Hmm.
wow, that's interesting. Maybe I should have started when I was 8.
Yeah, he couldn't. He still couldn't tell me where the voices were coming from, so
No.
it didn't work. But
No.
Oh, Joe says, yes, it is the control freak thing. Once the boss, always the boss. This is true. I've always been a boss. Well, I haven't always been a boss, but I mean, for the last, 30 years,
Hmm.
I had
it's
my own
Well,
personality type.
corporation
That's
and
all it is.
but
yeah.
the thing that we do, the thing that's important to remember about hypnosis is the subject, you're always in charge. The person being hypnotized is the
Mhm.
person in charge. And all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. All of
Right,
it. I'm just
right.
a guide. So I think that even people who are hard to settle down or have trepidations or don't, issues with losing control, once I get them convinced that they're running the show, that they're
Hmm.
completely in charge, that is often a shift.
Hmm.
And they're much more amenable to just letting go as long as they know that they're running the show.
Yeah, you'd have
Yeah,
to
well,
look me up.
yeah, definitely running it because honestly, like even when he was trying to bring me back out of it, I could visualize it. But I'm like, okay, I'm done. I was way ahead of him. I was already out. He's
Yeah.
just like he's
Yeah.
still going through it. I'm like, no,
Yeah, you're
I
just
don't know.
going with it. You're just going with it. Well, you're very also what we call very quick, probably very quick processor, so that, I mean, there's all kinds of things I can tell from just talking to you about, how things I could do to work with you that
Right,
would probably help it to be successful. But
right.
so don't lose hope. Come over any old time. We'll
I
work it out.
absolutely, yeah, I absolutely will give that challenge a whirl.
All righty.
We'll do that. So, you go from past life regressions. Maybe we'll get into some stories at
Hmm.
that point that you can talk about. I know there's a lot of it's you're bound by confidentiality. That's okay. But extraterrestrials. So
Hmm.
how is that? Because I can speak as an experiencer. I know abductee,
Hmm.
contactee for sure.
Hmm.
So how do you like? How does one even know that they've had the experience if it's buried? And what made you decide to keep going forward with it? How do you help someone like that?
Well, there are a lot of commonalities of experiencers. And, one of them is they don't sleep. They're always sleep. They're always sleep deprived.
I have never been abducted. I don't care.
What?
Yeah.
Not you insane.
No,
Yeah.
I am
I've
also the same,
I've
and I
never
admit it at
slept
least.
though, but I've never slept. That's why I need white noise because I'm constantly
Okay.
hearing voices.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well,
Okay.
the sleeping thing is a problem.
Right.
Some of them have uh, social problems, problems with the relationships of all sorts.
Well, maybe
Um,
that's his fault.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Pass the
it
puck,
usually,
Bubbles.
it
That's the way.
usually
Had a
is.
girl.
It usually is.
Right.
So,
Oh my gosh.
and then they have these, as I think I mentioned before, like these PTSD like flashes,
Oh
Mhm.
shit. Sorry.
night, night of things, experiences. They may be afraid to sleep at night because that's when the incidents happen. They most probably have partial memories going back to childhood. I personally don't believe that there is any such thing as somebody who has had one experience. I
Yeah,
think that
I
that
agree.
is always the tip of the iceberg. I have never found an instance, because what I do is once I get in there, I usually try to regress that individual to maybe their earliest experience of high strangeness.
Mm.
And I had a gentleman 2 days ago who recounted, and he couldn't have been more than two or whatever. He recounted being an infant and being in a kind of a conveyor belt
Oh,
where he and other babies were being washed and examined by very strange nurses that were very tall
Oh,
and skinny and had very long fingers with cotton gloves.
wow.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, and that was just, and that's one I've never heard about the conveyor. That's one I've never
Yeah,
heard.
that's a
That is
first.
that's a little that's disturbing. It's not a little disturbing. It's completely disturbing. Now, just to backtrack just 1 second, bear with me. We talked about lineage and DNA. How do we know these experiences are in this lifetime when you're regressing?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because there is a certain amount of interdimensionality, I think, going on here.
Mhm.
But even so, the ETs that are involved with the human beings that I work with seem to be kind of adhering to a linear timeline themselves. They seem to
Mm.
have a vested interest in following certain genetic lines, and I believe that's because they are simply looking to work with people who have telepathic and psychic abilities. And that's what they're following. That extra, that extra DNA, that extra thing, all of that DNA that hasn't yet been turned on by most people. That's what they're looking for. I mean, just as an example, say you're Diane Fossey and you're out there, working in the jungle, and you find a group of apes that are almost lingual, and there's three or four of them that can actually say words. Wouldn't you work with those three or four apes that actually could say words?
Of course.
I think it's a bit like that. And all of the different kinds of beings, and there are so many, but all of the different kinds of beings, with very little exception, seem to communicate primarily telepathically. Not that they can't speak verbally, because there are beings that are very, very humanoid,
Hmm.
indistinguishable from us, as a matter of fact, and they even choose to be telepathic. So that's that must be a contributing factor, because the phenomena of experiencers seems to cut across every kind of racial or economic or cultural or religious line.
Hmm.
So there is a commonality, and I believe the commonality is psychic ability and perhaps ancient DNA. A huge percentage of experiencers seem to have O negative DNA, which actually I do myself, but it's the oldest blood type on the
A lot
earth.
of fun trying to get a transfusion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Um,
and yeah.
no, no, sorry, continue.
Oh no, that's all I
No.
was going to say.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was
I
it. It was the end of my thought.
I was going to ask you, do you find when it comes to people with abilities that people who can remote view maybe have had quite a few experiences, or do you find it pretty leveled on that field?
Well, I will tell you that I think what happens as experiencers progress in their lives and their relationships with the ETs they're working with, that the bulk of the experiences that they have in mid to later life are in fact, what you would call remote viewing or astral projection, or and it's that kind of a technique. And many experiencers have almost like what I would call double concurrent lives, where they're living their physical life here in the third density, and then at night or even at other times they have an etheric projection of themselves, and they're actually working on projects and things with ETs on
And it's why you
various
feel so
craft.
dog dead tired the next day.
Yes, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
because when you think about it, we can,
I can see you, Michelle. I can see that.
Yeah.
No.
Truth.
but consciousness travels at the speed of thought. The speed of thought is faster than the speed of light.
Mm-hmm.
So if and I do think that probably every evolved culture goes through a kind of technology thing like we are doing now with the internet, where we do have instant communication, but it's a technical imitation of how our brain works. I think it's like training wheels. I think this is the developmental part of waking up. I don't see it as bad or good. It's
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
just we're learning a new kind of language, and many people can't accept that we can actually do this with our brains, so
Mhm.
they have to go through this process first and think about it as a binary communication and blah blah blah. But it's a
Mhm.
step. These are training wheels, I think.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. I
Hmm,
agree with that.
interesting.
I believe that you get downloads, as I
Hmm.
call them. There's, I often get them. Sometimes
Hmm.
I'll be working and I'll be just like, you just seem to know something that, and you don't really know how or where it
Yeah,
came from, and it works.
yeah.
Things like that. Um, Now, do you ever come across hybrids?
um I think that I have.
Right.
I
Because
think that
that
I
was a question I
have.
was actually asked
Yeah.
to ask.
Yes, I believe that I have in several different ways. Now, um, first of all, I will say that many experiencers are shown children on
Mhm.
craft, children that they have parented. And particularly if you're talking about older experiencers who had the misfortune to have genetic material taken in the post Eisenhower years during the Greys, big
Yeah.
experiment, and, where ova was taken. So many of those people are at different times shown their children. And the children can look just like you would expect, sometimes incredibly human, sometimes incredibly not human. But I have had like grown men, crying in my hypnosis chair because the
Oh,
children are taken away from them. It's still a bond, and it's not clear
attachment.
whether those hybrid children can live on Earth, or whether they can live. I suspect that some of them can. So now, also in another sense. I don't know if you've heard very much about what we refer to as the secret space program, or the 20 and
Yes.
back.
Yep.
Well, many participants in that program feel that their DNA was tinkered with, and alien DNA was added in when they were
Interesting.
still in the womb. And I'll tell you, a high percentage of these people, including I think Randy Kramer, they were from military families, and I think many of the children that were accessed and groomed and turned into cadets or whatever for the 20 and back program, they came from military families, so there would have been access.
Right.
Uh, so I think that some of the people that I work with have been enhanced with ETDNA.
Hmm.
So in that sense, yes.
And
Right.
and do you give them that information, or is there stuff that things that you hold back?
I don't hold anything back because
I love that.
I don't really give them any, it's my job to be like vanilla ice cream. I can't put anything into their brains. I can't suggest anything. So I
Yeah.
have a way of asking questions about these types of things, just like we do in past life regression, that is very neutral. But
Hmm.
yet,
Mm-hmm.
like I might say, can you see anyone around you? What do they look like?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see their face now? What does their so I just ask a lot of questions, and I give no answers, and I always record the sessions for people.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the mistakes that used to happen. In fact, I'm sure you both are aware of Betty and Barney Hill, that
Of
dear
course.
couple
Yeah.
that had the really incredible. It's really ground zero for modern ufology. Well, when they were having all kinds of terrible after effects from their experience, the insomnia, the visions, they were having all kinds of stuff going on, and so eventually they went to see a psychiatrist named Dr. Simon, Dr. Bernard Simon, and his specialty was he was a guy that worked in what we called battle fatigue, or I mean in early PTSD,
Mm.
soldiers that had come back from World War II, pretty much. That was his specialty. Didn't know anything about the ET thing, but he hypnotized people and they talked about their traumatic events. So Dr. Simon he did something that would now be considered very poor therapeutic practice. He hypnotized Betty and Barney separately because he didn't want them to cross contaminate their stories, of course.
Hmm.
But after each session, he pushed everything back in and said, "You're not going to remember anything we talked about." He had like a real gruff voice. "You're not going to remember anything we
Oh
talked about."
no.
Yeah, and so then poor Betty and Barney would go home and they would feel like like they were insane, because they had had all this stuff that they'd relived, and yet now they couldn't remember it again. So
So, but why do that?
it was all about keeping them from being suggestible to each other. But that's not what should have
Mm-hmm.
happened.
That
Just
Mm-hmm.
I
is
just hypnotizing them separately would have been enough. But that's
Right.
what he did. And poor Barney, he had his niece Kathy Martin, who heads up the
I interviewed her. Yeah.
she
She is.
I'm part of the MUFON Experience or Research Project that she heads up,
Mm-hmm.
and she did tell me that Barney he was a broken man after that.
Mm-hmm.
Betty took it much more. I don't want to say she took it in stride, but for her, it was a different. She handled it differently,
It was
and
a different time as well. I think it was they were
yeah.
more censored as to what they could say and afraid, especially in
And
their
remember,
circumstance.
Barney. Remember, they're a biracial couple in the 50s.
Right.
And Barney was
Yeah.
probably always afraid that some white cop with a gun was going to come up or so. You know what I mean? I mean, he carried a
Yeah.
gun in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
He had some fears. Years later, this is kind of interesting. Do you ever remember seeing? I think it's now called the UFO incident. Do you ever remember seeing the film with James Earl Jones and oh god, that other wonderful actress who played Betty, and you never saw it or heard of it? It was okay. Anyway, it's a very interesting film. If you ever get a chance to see it, you can probably find it on Netflix. I think it's called UFO Incident, and it's
Hmm.
James Earl Jones and Estelle Parsons. Anyway,
Oh wow.
I happened to actually. Um, I was a tour guide at Universal Studios, and I used to do the VIP tours. And I happened to have a group, and I took them on the set for that. And they were shooting, happened to be shooting one of James Earl Jones' scenes where he's with Dr. Simon and recounting his experience. I mean, the whole cast and crew, the whole soundstage had chills, because of the
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
performance. And I asked him, I said, he was kind of skeptical. He wasn't really a believer. And so he told me that he interpreted what happened to Barney, or his reaction to it, as being a black man terrified of being killed or lynched.
Wow.
That's what he was playing in his head, because he
Wow.
didn't really accept the ufology theme. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, there you
Mm-hmm.
go.
Yeah. Different
Wow.
times. I could see it.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, and you come up with trying to prove that something like this happens, that's really difficult. Those were different times.
Indeed,
It wasn't that long
indeed.
before that where, you had the whole Roswell thing and, don't
Mhm.
talk about it,
and
just,
and that was the beginning. That was the
yeah.
beginning of the military then being in charge of secret technology and
Mhm.
keeping secrets from the public. That was ground zero for that, for sure.
Mm. Yeah. I can't imagine, like, nowadays, they talk about disclosure like it's this big thing, and you've got everybody with a camera phone going, "What? We already know
God.
what's going on."
Oh
you know,
man,
you
people
can't
see
hide
so
it.
much stuff. No, there's no hiding it. I mean,
It's true.
people send me unbelievable things, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and it's just there's no trickery. It's just beep, here's my phone.
Yeah.
Here's So I think that they're showing themselves a lot. I think
Oh yeah.
there's a whole bunch of activity up there, and some of it's our stuff reverse engineered. A lot of it
Of
is
course.
not,
Of
and
course.
I think they show themselves. They show
Yeah.
themselves to certain people, you know?
I
Absolutely. And you remember a time where all of the UFO footage was always at night, and now all you're seeing is daytime. And of
Yeah,
course, the government says, well, yeah, that's ours because it's during the day. Well,
it's
you
t
know,
well, you know
it's
what?
moving a little funny. It's moving a little funny to be yours,
Yeah,
but
it's in
yeah.
these at these right angles.
Yeah,
I
I
was,
haven't seen that yet.
yeah,
I was interviewing one time. I was interviewing Richard Dolan. I'm sure you know who he is, and
I
and
do.
that lovely guy from South Africa, Michael Tellinger. But anyway, the interview was taking place. I don't know why, but out at a dojo, kind of near the airport, near the
That's
water.
awesome
I
though.
don't know why, but that's where we were.
No.
And so, Dolan was, he's a very right brain guy. He's a professor, and and then he's just, he's bitching and moaning. I've never seen anything. And okay, so that happened. Well, apparently, and I didn't see this when it happened, but our camera guy happened to be focused out the window. And while Richard Dolan was complaining, I never see anything, a craft zipped horizontally across the whole window area, paused, motionless, and then descended into the lake.
Hmm.
So there, Richard.
Yeah, I sent him the clip. Here you go, buddy. You asked for it. Here it is. You asked for it,
Wow.
Wow.
and it happened. We just didn't
Wow.
see it at the time until the digital camera picked it up, later.
Right. So it seems to be a movement. Like people
Hmm.
now, I think, are ready. Do you think people are
Hmm.
ready, or do you think that it's just going to be, there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people just afraid,
Yeah,
to go
and
into that next level of the journey, right? The evolution,
always,
right?
always, and that's what we have below the Mason-Dixon line in the United States. Not
Right.
everybody, but we have big problems of people who are afraid.
Hmm.
And I think people are ready, because if all you have to do is, I mean, look at what's on mainstream television.
Sure, that's the
It's
problem.
entire chat. Well, I mean, but there are entire channels that only focus on ufology,
Hmm.
spirit communications, and other
Right.
esoteric matters. We
Right.
are fascinated. We are ready. We are over ready. It's
Yeah.
estimated that well, MUFON says there are they have they estimate there are 14,000 people who have had close encounters. I mean, 14 million. I'm sorry, and that's the size of
Yeah.
New York. That's the size of New York City. But some people think it's as much as three quarters of
Yeah,
the
Oh
and those
yeah.
world.
are only the ones that reported it. And I think
That's
what's
right. Yeah.
important,
Exactly.
just to elaborate on what you just said about the spiritual channels, sci-fi,
Hmm.
and all of that, and a camera on our phone. If the
Hmm.
government didn't want us ready, they're certainly training us to be by giving those
Well,
little bits and pieces to us so we're not so shocked when it does happen. And I
well,
think
I
that
think
was
that
one of the big problems from the 50s. They didn't have that kind of information out.
Well, that was the era of real suppression and
Mm.
fear that if they accepted any advanced help, any help that would for free energy, that there would be economic collapse. They were
Well,
afraid. But even the
Hmm.
Pope has come out and said, the Pope speaks to again three-quarters of the world, and the Pope said, any beings are God's creations and in no way threatens our belief in God or our spirituality.
so let
So
Hmm.
me ask you this, a spin off of that. Out of all of the sessions that you've done, do you feel that there's something to worry about, or do you feel that they're fairly benign out of these multiple
mm,
multitude of species?
very good question. The the people that have come to me, and I'm speaking, I can only speak for myself and my
Of
own
course.
research, but
Oh yeah, it's
I
just an
would have
opinion. We won't
I
hold
would
you to it.
I would have to say that 90% of the experiencers who come to me have had benign or even enlightening experiences.
Interesting.
So this is primarily a positive thing that is
Mhm.
about upgrading the human race. I mean, like there and in fact, everybody makes a big deal. Oh, implants! Oh my God, they're tagging us. They know where we are. Well, guess
Yeah,
what?
that's a big one. That's a big one.
Everybody has an individual brain signature, vibrational signature. This is
Right.
science. This is not made up. Everybody has it. So
Hmm.
obviously, a sophisticated race is going to be able to find anybody they want just by turning their little radio dial and
Yeah.
turning into
Right.
your frequency. So there's a lot of fear, and I don't believe that there needs to be. But what my job is, I feel my job is to help the individual recover whatever missing memories there are and integrate them into their experience and into their life and begin to have incredible confidence in their specialness and
Hmm.
really just heal the wounds of not being believed or some traumas or feelings of abandonment. Whatever's going on, it's my job
Hmm.
to heal it so the individual can look at those experiences as they happened and integrate them.
Okay. So, is there one species that seems to be more, um, I guess, more prevalent than
Mhm.
others? Because of course the Greys always get the bad rap because
They
they seem to
do.
be the one that gets seen the most, right?
The gray, well, I think with the grays, we're looking at a couple of different things. Now, I know that there are many, many species of grays. The grays that encountered Betty and Barney Hill were Zeta reticulites. They were from the
Right.
Zeta reticuli system, but there are many types of
Right.
grays. I think that a lot of times the grays that people see when they're either being taken or escorted to a craft or escorted off, I'm not sure that those are fully biological beings.
The
I think
holograms.
that they could be, I think they're rather drone like. I think they're
Yeah.
cybernetic beings who have been engineered for space travel. And they seem to be like kind of like the minions, and it's
Hmm.
not unusual for them to be working with Pleiadians or Lyrans or the most humanoid people you could possibly imagine,
Mhm.
or gray and human hybrids. Now when you get into the people who are involved in these military programs, there's there are all kinds of hybrids involved and
Mm.
all kinds of species are
Right.
involved. So, the late Paul Hellyer, what a sweet man he was.
Oh,
What a
yeah.
sweet man. He, on one of the last times I spoke to him, he told me that as far as his knowledge extended, that at the present time, the Canadian government has diplomatic relations with at least 80 species, and
Wow.
that was a few years ago. So
Hmm.
we
That's
have
impressive.
we have
He was the
diplomat, and
first.
who was the first? I
No, I said
believe.
I
Oh,
know the Canadians were the first to come forward over between us and
yeah.
US. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But we're in bed with the US with all this
We
stuff, of
are.
Well,
course.
absolutely. You have to be. We're
Yeah, they're
attached.
big brother, and it just came out, remember that they're all of those terrible, oh, what's the name of those psychological brutal, torturous things that they did at the University of Montreal,
Mm-hmm.
um, where they were giving these students and soldiers and big, LSD and all this stuff,
Well,
and trying
yeah.
to trying to create a super soldier. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was a complete bomb, the entire thing. But a lot of people were tortured and experienced that kind of stuff.
It's very sad, but a lot of countries that share a border are often in bed together.
So true. So
Yeah.
true. So true.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really difficult, because you're. I think once government get involved, everything gets corrupted,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Maybe,
right?
maybe a certain leader of Canada can take a trip to Mars.
Oops, missed the flight back. That's terrible. Sorry
That
about
sucks. One-way ticket, huh? No,
It'd
we
be
don't want those
nice.
genes colonizing
It'd
over
be
there. Yeah,
nice.
send me all the hate mail. I really don't care.
Yeah.
But right now, it could be anyone in that seat. I'd be ripping them. But oh my gosh.
Mhm. Um, so basically, do you feel that working with, and this is on both levels, whether it be
Exactly.
extraterrestrials memories or past life memories, do you think, I mean, I know I would want to know both. I've gone to great lengths, to go back in time for myself, and to my also for my lineage, and
Hmm.
also to learn more about my experiences with, um, but do you think it's especially with past lives, is it healthy? Because there's a reason that I think there are certain memories that we can't remember. Is it because, for example, past lives, how many people we've lost, how many loves that haven't returned with us, or that we may not be aware are with us, or may have chosen to stay behind?
Hmm.
That could be like pretty traumatic, because when I sort of caught wind of one life, and my love from that life hadn't returned, honestly, I thought to myself, I guess now I know why it's best to not remember it, because it's really painful. As nice as it
You're
is to remember it, it
yeah.
was painful
You were in
for a long
mourning.
time. Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
I had
Hmm.
really had to work it.
Well, that's one of the reasons why it's very important, the aftercare after a past life
Yeah,
regression. And one thing that I do is I don't really ever let anyone experience trauma in the first
right.
person. Whenever anything comes up that where I start seeing any negative emotions or fears or pain, then I make that person an observer, and so they can look at the entire thing and still process it, but
Mm,
without the pain. I don't know. I'm just of the mind that knowledge is power.
I agree.
And
Mm-hmm.
the more self
Same.
knowledge we have, and we can tolerate anything. And I think one of the most informative things that we haven't talked about too much is interlife regression. Now,
Yes. Oh,
that is really mind opening, because that's our home. It's where we are in between lives. And there
right.
are certain commonalities, and we're with our loved ones, and we do this, that, the other. We go to a council. We figure out if we want to come in again, and that is incredibly insightful for many, many people, because it explains why we're here right now. And it
Mhm.
often explains a lot about, the family members that have chosen to come in, or why it was decided upon that way. So interlife regression, and of course experiencers, um, they often find out that they have come into this lifetime purposefully to be a part of disclosure. Many of us have
Mm,
chosen to be here now. I mean, we're
mhm.
midwives of disclosure, all of us, really. It's a grassroots movement. Screw the government. They've lied, they've tricked. There are
Mm,
trillions of dollars missing from the budget when, we can't feed the children in Appalachia. So it's effed.
right.
So they're not going to do anything. But so what? It's happening anyway.
Right. Right. So let's elaborate more on that then. What is the benefit? Just like Kate is saying, she goes, I wonder how much of this is affecting my life now, all of the stuff that sits behind. A lot of that stuff could be rectified in between, right?
Oh
Yes.
if,
yeah.
if
Yeah.
you were
Oh
able
yeah.
to
Yeah.
remember that, you might not have to come back with somebody to, let's just start this
Uh,
over because you
Yes.
pissed me off in the last life. I'm scarred for life now. Like, you
Yeah.
could resolve it in between.
Resolutions happen. And now also remember, and this is something I had never thought about until I started doing this work. Some generous souls take on the responsibility of coming into the earthly realm um, to be kind of negative catalysts, to be teachers of certain things, or to teach certain lessons to individuals by being not nice people. So
Mm.
sometimes very wonderful souls choose upon request to come in and fulfill a role that will teach that other individual something essential that they have to know.
That is generosity, because
Mhm.
that's a hard pill to
Yeah,
swallow, because they
and it
could be
happens.
living a very lonely existence
That's right.
here.
That's right. People take on all different kinds of journeys. For everything from, I guess, what you would call people differently abled. Any kind of those kinds of things. They take them on for accelerated learning. That's
Mm.
accelerated learning, apparently, and in the scope of what as
So
we
your
try.
karmic points are greater. You sort of
Yeah, yeah.
you sort of get to go a little faster,
Yeah, the
right?
learning of, and actually, I mean, that's true with all of us. I mean, they call this the cruel school. There are many beings that don't care to incarnate anymore. They're still
Mm.
evolving on the other side, but not as quickly. That's the
Right,
thing. The real
right.
nothing speeds up the acceleration of knowledge and
Mm.
knowledge of others, and hopefully compassion and all these other things, than human experience in the third density.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. Oh, here, okay, we'll put
I'm
this up.
having flashes as you're speaking. I
Yeah.
don't understand it, but I am. There's got to be some kind of connection
Hmm. No
See,
doubt.
with you and I right now. Yeah, that is really wow.
um, Kate is saying, and this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is feeling homesick for another time, or
Mhm.
maybe
Hmm.
leaving someone behind, feeling
Oh,
that sense of not belonging in this time or
oh
place is a big
yeah.
one,
Oh man,
right?
lots of people. I have that big time. My last life ended around the 1890s, and I just want to go back to the Victorian era in London. That's just where I want to be.
Uh,
And yes, so I have always felt uh, that particular homesickness.
mhm.
And I know what it feels like. Now, some people are homesick for other planets. And this is something that I should mention probably is it seems that we are in a soul group with a lot of other beings, and beings that aren't too far out from us,
Mhm.
the basic model, but
Right.
we are in a really large soul group, and many people that I work with who are experiencers have actually had lives on planets where they are engaging now with those beings from their own past life. Does that make sense?
It
It
does.
sounded complex, but
Yeah,
so.
no, because we're so limited to this time or
Mhm,
this place.
mhm.
Realistically, it's not. You're out into a collective. You can end up anywhere.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I've had people describe to me different planetary figures, different, two suns or two moons, or different types of shrubbery, different types of unusual animals. I mean, I've heard some amazingly fascinating stuff about other civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
who are connected to us and who feel and have children and care about what's going on with us.
Right. We're going to do a really quick station ID, and then we'll pick up on that.
Yes.
All
If you're
right.
tuned in just now, you are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and myself, Amelia Pisano. And tonight we have the lovely Leslie Clark with us. We're talking way back, literally, ancient times and present times and regression. And so interesting. If you missed it, give us about 25 minutes and then check back for the archive and start us from the beginning and share it with your friends. Trust me, it is so worth it. You're just going to love this segment. We are broadcasting live from the gorgeous city of New Orleans on 105.3 FM radio, right now on UFO Paranormal Radio on YouTube. And tonight we are streaming live as well on, I believe, International Public Radio, all of our Facebook pages. You can comment and interact with us there and leave your questions there. Just tag me and I will be sure to read it out loud on air. And you can ask us anything, ask either one of us anything. And I've already said that part. I've got a long list, so forgive me. I would like to say thank you to the creator, composer, award-winning Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, for our beautiful and amazing outro and intro tonight. You can find him on Bandcamp and Amazon and Spotify and most streaming platforms. And especially a big thanks and hugs to the ones from the beginning and are still with us. Folgers Coffee, we love you. No one loves you more than Michelle and I. Thank you so much for your support. I think I got it.
Good to the last drop.
That's
Big
right.
time.
Folgers
Big
Coffee.
time.
That's right.
Heavenly coffee.
Oh, you've got to sing it. You've got to sing it. That's right.
There we go. I like that.
Right? Folgers is the heavenly coffee.
There we go.
The best part of waking up is with Folgers in your cup.
Oh, that would be the more contemporary one.
That's the new one, yeah.
young thing.
No, I'm not that young.
Question. So when people die, we're conditioned to think, go to the light, right? But some believe that the light just recycles us back. So I'm only asking this because of dealing in past lives, right? So there's a theory that, that's what recycles you back into another life. And some people truly believe that it enslaves you to third density, to this place.
Oh.
Whereas the theory says if you actually step outside of that loop and say, no, I'm not going into this light, because you're conditioned to, oh, look, your loved ones, look, it's a beautiful place. It's inviting. When you look into it, you just want to be there. But if you step outside of it, and we have been conditioned to fear the darkness, that this is where sometimes maybe your time travelers are, because they step outside and they freedom to be essence again and to just travel and do whatever it is you want, go into the collective. Or do you ever come across anything like that?
Well, I think it's a universe of free will.
Right.
And if people don't want to, if beings of souls like you, me, or Anita, if we don't want to come into the earthly realm, we don't have to. I don't think that there is anything propelling or controlling us in that way.
Like a different type of extraterrestrial, or like archon.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that. We use the white light, or following the light, and past life regressions when we bring people in and through the birth experience and through the death experience. I think it's just a portal that opens up a higher vibrational portal. And not everybody stays in that first level where we go when we first pass. I've also heard people talk about if individuals have had a long, wasting disease, like, a cancer or something awful, they even are revitalized. Their etheric bodies are affected by that deep illness. And so there are even hospitals, if you will, but without pain, and hospitals where people regain their energy. I
Hmm.
believe.
Right.
Now, what I have heard, and that people who live really horrible lives of evil and transgression, for them, because they have no spirituality, no consciousness, for them, I have heard that it can be like a revolving door where they don't even analyze their lives. They don't want to be judged, and they just go right back into kind of a similar dark
But they
thing.
don't evolve from it. They just
They
keep,
don't evolve. And
right,
again, that's choice. Again,
right,
that is choice. It is a
right.
universe of free will. And I don't think the ETs are involved in any kind of trickery with that. I know I'm aware of that theory, but what I
Hmm.
do find interesting, and I found surprising at first, was, as I explained, the idea that many ETs are in soul groups with us and are just walking around in the heavenly realms and sitting on our councils, and as it's just
Hmm.
a normal thing. Now, I also think that it may be possible that evolved beings of a very high vibration, I mean, almost of the angelic realm, can move about in what we call the afterlife, and freely. It's simply a question of adjusting one's vibration. And there are
Hmm.
many beings that are not there are many beings that are not solidly physical, and they are
Right.
very capable of entering different vibrational realms, whether they be interdimensional or even the dimension that we call the afterlife.
Right. Right. Oh yeah, because I mean, there's layers of dimensions all in like
Hmm.
one space. Right. It's
I
just like
believe
radio
so.
frequencies. You can only listen to one radio station at a time,
Yeah,
but doesn't mean they're not more.
that's right.
Because people just slip in and out of them. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I've communicated with people in time slips, and it's just like
Yeah,
it's mind-boggling.
yeah.
But I don't know. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating world we live in.
Well, we have a pineal gland. Our pineal gland may be our controller, our ticket to ride, as it were. If we
Yes.
really had control over it, and the DMT and what it actually does,
Yes.
we would be interdimensional travelers as well, and some of us are. I mean, it's
Hmm.
said that the great yogis, the great mystics, the great
Yes.
evolved beings of our planet had pineal glands that were the size of like lemons, and
Wow.
Yes.
our pineal gland it looks like a little pine cone. It's about the size of a grain of rice,
Well,
but
it's been calcified. I think
yeah.
I truly believe in the theory that it's just all in the food. We don't eat healthy the way we used to. There's
Well, we're
there's
not
chemicals
growing
in the
it.
food. There's chemicals in the water. It just calcifies. And unless
Hmm.
you get on board with the fact that no, you have to try to decalcify that,
Hmm. Hmm.
work with that from a physical standpoint,
Hmm.
and work through meditation and vibrations and frequencies, that you're not going to be able to get to that point again.
I
But you
yeah.
can, and I work with people all the time to reactivate their pineal glands. I have them visualize the gland. I have them visualize the DMT, coming out of it like little bubbles. I mean, and believe it or not, and I mean, we need DMT to dream,
Right.
actually, and which is
Yes.
another reason why you shouldn't eat at night after 7, because it's no, it's
There
really
you
true.
go.
try
It's a
try
real thing. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
real
it really
thing.
is. Three
Yeah,
olives before bed was the worst thing I could have done last week.
yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, it was 3 olives. I said to Michelle, but yet everything that happened in my day was in my dream. I said that was the dumbest thing I could have done, and I do it too often, way too often, because we finish late here. So then you go, you grab a
Mhm.
bite, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'm ready for bed, and all of a sudden, your child again, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is your neighbor. It's just
Yeah.
right.
But with that being said, if I wake up, because I mean, I might only fall asleep at 1 or 2, but then I'll get up again at about 7 and I'll go just get a little sip of water, and my stomach is empty at that point. And that's when everything happens to me in the wee
Mm-hmm.
hours after. I'll take that little sip of water,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, like everything, all
Mm-hmm.
these visions and experiences. It's never at night when I go to sleep, probably for
Mm-hmm.
that reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it does. If they say that to have a good night's sleep,
Mm.
it's important because we apparently get a release of melatonin as soon as the sun goes down, like around 7 o'clock.
So
Our
can't you just
bodies
take
being,
melatonin?
I don't think. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think you can take it, and I don't think it's as effective as the stuff that
Some
we
people have
make.
horrific nightmares on melatonin. Others just,
I know.
I have
Some people it
melatonin
has.
drops. I sleep like a baby when I do, but it gives you headaches for whatever reason.
Yeah, I
Right.
think the best thing is to just simply instigate release of your own body chemistry, and that
Right.
way you can't go wrong. But we need that little we need that little DMT release that happens at 7 o'clock, along with that little blast of melatonin, because that's going to
Right.
ensure that if we go to sleep at 10 or 11, we're going to it will be all over our system, and we'll be ready for sleep, and we'll be our psychic self will be open for the dreams. So,
Here's
yeah.
here's a comment that's interesting. My son told me his third eye popped and broke a couple of weeks ago, but he chose on his own to do visualizations. My God,
Mhm.
tongue tied tonight. He told me now a white light shines from his third eye and it works again, and he can talk to Nana again, sleeping better.
Mhm.
Most more than me. Well, children do, I believe.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe maybe there was he wasn't producing enough juice, for whatever happened, stress of going back to school, after COVID. Who knows, but maybe for whatever reason, his pineal gland wasn't functioning the way he's used to it, and then
Hmm.
he visualized. And I swear, you can turn these things on by visualization. You really, really can. So he did that,
Yeah.
and now he can talk to Nana again. That's so
See,
I think
cute.
that's awesome.
as
That's
as
so
a
cute.
medium, I've always practiced clearing my pineal gland. As soon as I learned about it, like 9, 10 years ago, and there's a meditation that you can actually do for
Mhm.
free that really helps. And I remember the first time I did it, it was like another awakening. It was crazy. It
Mm.
was really crazy. But you learn how to do that on your own the more you practice it. I think
I
it's
I don't
think
know.
very
so.
Dying
important.
4 times might help.
Pardon? Yeah.
Dying
Well,
4 times
it was
might
a little
help.
bit. It was a few more than four, but
I know.
yeah,
I'm just generalizing, but no, I know
I'm one of
you've
those
been around the
people.
block a few times.
I'm one of those people that goes in for a minor thing, and all of a sudden I'm flatlined because I'm allergic to everything, and
Oh,
nobody. The
no.
same. The common thing that happens. The common denominator here, whenever I have surgery, is they're giving me a drug that I'm allergic to that is actually listed on my wrist.
Mhm.
Figure that one out. So
Yeah.
someone's knocking on a door trying to make sure that I'm awake. But um, I clean the pineal gland is so important to decalcify it. I believe that it's not just the way we eat, but maybe that's the way the government's controlling to make sure you're not using it because they're well aware of the
Well,
abilities.
I think we just have to take responsibility for our own stuff. I really do.
Yes,
And
but
oh, I'm
sorry, I
sorry.
was just no. I was just going to say you can't take responsibility for what's in our air or what's in our water
Oh,
or
I
what's in our
agree with
food.
you.
Little
Yeah,
ways like that,
yeah,
they
yeah.
can control somewhat. That's what I meant.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think there's
Yeah, not in a
a lot of ignorance involved with it too, and materialism and greed. But I agree with you completely about the environmental factors that are interfering with, and why we have so many children on the autism spectrum. There have to be environmental factors. There
And
have
yet
to
they're
be.
extremely
absolutely.
gifted.
Yeah, they are, but
Yes.
something is going on
Right.
that's causing these types of situations.
So that's a
But
curiosity. Have you ever hypnotized an autistic? person or Down syndrome's person, because it's like when one of your senses are down,
Hmm.
the others compensate. My niece, I have a niece with autism, and she's just like total sees like everything so far beyond.
Hmm.
Her mind definitely works differently, but she's highly gifted. It would be so
Hmm.
interesting to see inside there.
I know. Well, I have worked with a number of teenagers and such who would be, on the spectrum. But it's hard to make a blanket statement about all of them because, again, when you say on
Sure,
the
sure.
spectrum, boy,
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
I
So
can see that.
some of the kids are just not able to focus enough
Right.
Yeah.
to some of them have other issues going
Yeah.
that are ADD like. They might have ADD and some autism, so they can't sit still. So sometimes it works, sometimes it's just not possible. It's a little bit like when you're working with seniors and they're in dementia.
Mm,
Some of them can be hypnotized. Some of them, the frontal lobe is not working well enough. Some of them
right.
can't focus. So it's a
Yeah.
kind of a catch as catch can, but there's no real single and hard rule. I have worked with kids with Asperger's and such, and helped them to be more comfortable at school. To it's a very powerful therapy when it works.
Right.
Mhm.
So I don't shy away from it. It's just that it doesn't always work as well as I would have wanted it to.
Right.
That's
No,
Mhm.
understandable, though.
yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
can see that.
Yeah.
Um, what are your recommendations? So, if for people who have maybe thought about, I want to know more about past lives, or I think I'm an experiencer and I'd like to learn more about that. What can one expect coming into your office?
Well, before we get into any actual hypnosis, I always have a real good talk with the person as long as it takes maybe an hour. I want to hear about the experiences. I want to hear about their medical history, and certainly, and I don't want to belabor this or dwell on it, but not everyone who contacts me is in fact an experiencer.
Right.
There will always be a percentage of people who are experiencing some type of dissociative disorder. And
Right.
what I do in that case is I have colleagues, psychiatrists and psychologists and psychotherapists, who are all amenable to that kind of idea that that could be happening, and yet they have the credentials to be able to work with someone with a profound mental illness. So I think
Interesting. Yeah.
both things could be happening. There could be an
Mm.
experiencer who is also having dissociative
Of
disorders,
course.
but
Yeah.
unfortunately, with the limitations of my practice as a hypnotherapist, I can't really go in there and determine those things. I have to refer them to somebody who's more qualified, and I do that. My point being, I don't hang anybody out to dry. Anybody who comes to me, I'm going to
Mhm.
help them however I can, and so there's always a consultation, and then a typical regression session is usually about 2 hours, so it's a bit lengthy, but
Right.
I need to get the client or the patient into the alpha state or maybe even the theta state. So it's
Mhm.
a long, relaxing process that's very pleasant. So the whole process is pleasant, folks. I want you to know that. You've
It's like
probably
a
never
deep
been so
tissue massage,
relaxed. Oh yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yes, yes.
you come out of hypnosis and it's like I just came off the beach. I was just
Yeah,
on
yeah.
vacation. This is
It's a
amazing.
very
Yeah.
pleasant process. So, when we're doing regression, I get the person's body very, very relaxed. And then, when I'm sure that they're in the right zone, and I can tell that by respiration and papillary skin response and other things, when I know the person's where they need to be, then I start moving them around in time a little bit in their own life, their present life. And this is kind of just to sort of lube everything up, oil it all up, right? The memory
Yeah.
mechanism. And
Mhm.
after I've moved a person around and they're telling me what they wore to their 5th birthday party and this, that, and the other. Then if I'm if I'm involved in past life regression, then we go deeper and we go into the process of leaving the going excuse me the process before the birth, etc., that kind of thing, and we travel to the other lifetimes. Now if it's an experiencer, what I will usually do, and I forgive me if I said this already, unless there's a specific incident that the person wants to explore, I will
Mm.
usually try to determine the earliest episodes of high strangeness. But
Right.
sometimes people come to me with something that's driven them crazy their whole life. For example, I had a wonderful client, professor, University of Toronto, just as an example about how this happens to everybody. And he had several strange experiences, but the one that he couldn't really remember all of happened with his whole family.
Hmm.
And there were 3 or 4 kids. I think there were 3 or 4 kids in the back seat with no seat belts. Those were the days, right? So
Yeah.
he had been on holiday with his family, and they were driving back from holiday, and I got the impression maybe it was Quebec. It was pretty far, and they were going through some woods, and then all of a sudden, just as it's getting dark, the father, who appears to be in some kind of altered state, turns on to a just like a dirt road in the middle of
Mhm.
nowhere, and he's driving down there in the family station wagon. And then the way my client remembered it is, he said he looked out to the right of the window and he saw a bunch of Cub Scouts on bikes. Now, this is nighttime in the middle of nowhere. He sees Cub Scouts on bikes. And then he remembered, driving up to a certain point, and there were like workmen, like it was a dead end, and waving lights, and they had to stop. Now, that's what he consciously remembered. What
Mhm.
it turned out to be was, first, the whole family saw a craft. They all
Mm.
had sighting on the road. They saw a big craft, very close, very slow, silent. And when the father turned onto the road, what was seen along the road were grays. They were grays, and there were many of them, and they may have been in some kind of conveyance. I'm not sure, but they were grays. And there were no workmen with lights flashing, but when the car stopped, they saw some taller gray types who were apparently in charge. And the craft was right there with like a ramp. And then they started floating the kids out the car windows.
That'd be
And
hard.
yeah, and that's where my and that was very the rest of this was very scary stuff for this guy.
Yeah, of
So
course.
they're floating the kids out the window, and he remembered then, being on an examining table, and he looked over, and his brother was on the other table, and his brother was sobbing uncontrollably because he was so terrified, but my guy wasn't. And his sisters were taken somewhere, his parents were taken somewhere, and eventually they were all kind of rounded up and then dragged out or walked out to their car, and they drove away. And I think, the kids, the clothes were all on backwards, that kind of thing, and the whole family was missing. They were missing about 4 hours of time.
See, I think that's where, when you say like benign experiences, but I think this is the sort of thing that people can't get past, is that they're being taken
Hmm.
against their will.
Hmm.
And, you know, are they being experimented on, or are they being assisted? I mean, ET does help a lot of people with their health,
Hmm.
or what is it they're doing? Because it
Well,
just
for
seems so
children.
terrifying.
Well,
Children are going to be
Everything.
traumatized regardless, though. Children.
indeed. Now, this
Yeah.
was quite some time ago. This was
Right.
an older, so this does fall into the timeline in through the 60s, where we were
Right.
still having this type of reproductive research being carried out on us.
By
And
government or by extraterrestrials?
by the Greys that made the deal
Right.
with Truman and then
Eisenhower,
later
Truman.
Eisenhower. There was a deal in place, and if any of your listeners, if they have a particular interest in how all of this got started and all this government secrecy. There's a
Mm,
wonderful book called The Day After Roswell by Philip
mhm.
Corso, and he was the officer in charge of what they called the Department of Foreign Technology.
Yeah, it's on
It,
that book's
it
on
was
That
foreign,
Amazon.
sounds
all right.
creepy
Yeah,
right there, right? Like,
yeah.
It
Jesus.
was
The day
foreign, all
after
right, and
Roswell.
that's how they had all this stuff, and they just apportioned it out to the big industry leaders. You
Mm,
guys at the Skunk Works, you got this, you
right.
guys got the solid state thing, you got this, you
Yeah.
got the Velcro over there in Van Nuys, whatever
Oh,
they
Skunkworks got everything.
yeah, they got a
Yeah.
lot of it, but
Mm,
there was IBM, there were
yeah.
all of the industrial giants. IBM, by the way, is the same company that built the gas chambers for Hitler, International Business Machines. Did you know that?
Nice.
Nice.
No,
They don't like that. They don't like that really mentioned very
guess
often.
not.
Yeah, but
Guess
Can't
not.
they
anyway,
can't be considered for past war crimes?
I don't think I think that there is no involvement with anybody or anything to do with that regime.
Yeah.
They were a company that came up during that regime, and they were made to do what they were made to do it, like everybody was made to do terrible stuff, and they just did it. But I don't think
That
there's
is what it
anything
is. Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
Unfortunate.
But
Mm,
that was the history. So there you go.
mm,
And I've almost forgotten what you. Oh, so that was the experience of my college
mm.
professor. And once this came back to him, as scary as it sounds, he was like a born again guy. I mean, because
Uh,
this is all being carried, and see, this is why it's never better to leave it, because it's all being carried, and it's not
mhm.
very far down. And any memory blocks, as I said, are deeply flawed. So
Right.
the
Right.
important thing is as soon as somebody's having fragments of something, they're ready to gently and with love and caring and compassion be led through the experience, um,
Mhm.
in just the kindest, most therapeutic way that I can do it.
Yeah, it's so difficult. I mean, it's as a parent, it would be so difficult. You might get past the whole experience, but then there's a dealing with, because you know,
Many parents won't accept it. See, this is
yeah,
really
that's hard.
being a parent. This is so the idea that you have allowed something like this to happen to your child.
Yeah,
This is why many parents just they just won't even hear it.
no, you
And
have to.
sometimes, if it's far back enough, um, uh, sometimes these events are interpreted as like Christian, angelic visits or something, as religious
Yeah,
events.
because it's like implanting,
Mhm.
of or
Yeah,
looping memories or just
yeah.
implanting ideas. So you can get around that then.
Hmm. Right. They'll accept that.
Right.
Like, somebody's old grandmother will accept that, 20 angels came down and took you for a ride and brought you back and put you in your bed. That's
Right.
okay, because
Right.
that's,
'Cause
possible.
it's an
That's
angel.
that's in the
Right.
Bible, so, oh my
Right.
goodness. But, we are unique in the universe, I think, because we are the hybrids. The ground zero was the Anunnaki, who upgraded us from Miocene apes practically into Homo sapiens sapiens for their own purposes. But we have been synthetically upgraded, which is another reason why so many things go wrong with us. Did you know that human beings, we can experience over 6,000 genetic fails right? 6,000 horrendous things can happen to us that are genetic failures. Nowhere in the animal kingdom is there anything else like that. Now, animals are having some issues, but I think they're mainly environmental.
Right.
I think if you see animals with birth defects and things that we're talking about environmental reasons primarily, but we are an imperfect, and that's why our DNA is truncated. That's why, we have like a little bar, this, you can go this far, but not farther. Well, that
Right.
turns out to be BS. And no matter what anybody thinks about it, people are waking up spiritually. They're waking up in their own ways. They're not
Mm.
necessarily waking up I mean, not everybody's doing the same discipline, but people are waking up all over the world.
I have to agree with you. I mean, I've been working in the field of, you know, the paranormal and mysteries and filming, for the last 19 years. And where I started in the mindset of people then compared to the people now, it's a really big jump.
Oh, you know it.
It
You
is. It
know it.
is. It's a really big jump. And
Yes.
I think if people were aware of that, I've always worked with people with their mindset. It's
Hmm.
always been frequencies and vibrations,
Hmm.
and you have to educate people as you go along. But the difference is people are willing now.
Oh, yeah, they
It's
are.
not black and
And
white anymore. It's not good or bad or this or that. It's
that's
open.
right. And the idea that thought informs matter.
Mm,
Matter doesn't inform thought. Actually, there's only vibration. There's dense vibration, a less dense vibration. And I think even when people are doing wonderful disciplines like yoga or meditation,
mm,
they're still, even if they're not thinking what we would call spiritual thoughts, it's
right,
still happening
right.
anyway by doing these ancient disciplines. I think they
Mm-hmm,
have awareness built into them somehow.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that. I believe it's all in there.
Hmm.
It's just, having to be reminded how to use it again or how to find it. And I guess that's where you come in.
Yeah. All it
So,
takes is the desire. All it
right.
takes is the desire to manifest something
Mm,
positive and wonderful, and it can be manifested. Maybe not always in the way that you thought, but
right.
we can have, why we are masters of limitation. Joy and
Mm,
happiness and awareness is like a big, beautiful river flowing through, and there are some people that are taking a little teaspoon and going, you know there's some people that are drinking big bottles of joy. So it is a universe of free will. And and if anyone would like to talk to me, if they think they've
yes.
had an experience, or if they want to talk about inner life regression or past life regression, or anything else, or where to find the best Chinese food in New York City, anything, you can call me.
Uh,
That's
this is the
that.
part where
There's
you
a
promote
challenge.
yourself and where
The
you
best
tell
the
everybody
best
how to
pizza
find
in
you.
Manhattan would be the challenge.
Yeah, I know. It's like original Rays, I think. But
Oh,
anyway, you can always reach me at Leslie, Lesley, at lightworkhypnosis.com.
It's
And you can
on our group page too,
Oh,
your
yes.
thank
website.
you. And you can
Yeah.
find me on Facebook, both as Leslie Mitchell Clark and Lightwork Hypnosis. And if you are interested in knowing a little bit more about this, my book is available on Amazon. It's called Intersections: A True Story of Extraterrestrial Contact, and it focuses on one fabulous gentleman and his complete journey through the first session, and it has big chunks of transcriptions of the sessions in there, so you really get to kind of get a feeling of of
Oh,
uh,
that's
of what
wonderful.
I'm doing. So that's on Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, wherever you Amazon, you can get the book.
I love that.
Google the book
And
and
Wherever
you'll
you
find where
Amazon.
it is.
If
Yes.
you guys missed all this information, simply go to the Facebook page of The Outer Realm, and we have all of Leslie's information there and how to find her and how to find her books.
Oh,
There we
bless your
go.
hearts. Thank
Yeah.
you so much,
Oh,
ladies.
Thank you. It's been
Oh,
so much
man.
It's
fun.
our pleasure.
It's
It
been
was
just
so
a
delightful.
joy to talk to two such like-minded people, and you
Oh my
guys have
gosh.
such great vibes, and thank goodness
you.
for
Thank you.
everything that you are doing. I've seen you both on programs explaining phenomena, and you're brilliant at that too, I must
No,
say.
thank you. Looking forward
Yeah,
to meeting you.
Thank you.
yeah. Oh, we'll do that. Okay,
Yes.
ladies.
All right.
You know,
Have a
Thank
good
you know where
night.
I am.
You do now.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
Good night,
darling.
sweetie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye
Good
now.
night.
Good
Bye.
Good
night.
night.
Bye-bye.
Well, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment here on the Outer Realm. And wow, that was just amazing. Isn't she just delightful? Thank you so much, Leslie Mitchell Clark. And thank you for Joe, who was also in the chat room, just egging things on over there. And big thank you to Folgers. Big thank you to Justin Snicker. And please remember to head on over to the YouTube pages, which is, of course, International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. And please subscribe. But don't forget to head on over to Facebook and find The Outer Realm and give us a follow as well. If you would like to interact with us, please go to the outer realm contact@gmail.com, the outer realm contact@gmail.com. Next week, okay, this is going to be like awesome. So Wednesday is the return, of course, of Carl Cookson and Hamilton White of the Lost Relic Hunters with a twist. Just saying. So they're going to be touching, of course, on season 2 of their new series, because now it has aired in the United States. So they're going to be able to talk a little bit more about that. However, they thought it would be fun. Yeah, fun. We don't know yet. To put Amelia and I in the hot seat. I don't know what we're getting into with that, but apparently they're going to be interviewing us, and I can't even imagine what they're going to come up with. So that's Wednesday night. Thursday night, we welcome Ryan Musgrave, I hope I said that properly, Evans, to the show for the very first time. And he's going to be discussing crypto-terrestrial. So if you want to all know what that means, definitely going to have to tune in. So Saturday brings back the return, of course, of the Gray Zone Uncensored with myself and Joe Montaldo.
Yay.
Yes, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 7 p.m. Central. We're back on track. It's been crazy for us lately. So until then, have a great night. Have a fantastic, safe weekend, and we will see you all next week. Good night.
You have been listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano, airing live every Wednesday and Thursday evening, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 to 10 p.m. Central, on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.